And welcome back to episode 8 of the Unpaid and Underrated Podcast, a podcast by crew for crew. I am one of your guests. I am one of your hosts, Big Keith. I am joined by a fellow co-host this week, not Big Joey. It's actually Big Kevin from a previous episode.
Everybody, Big Kevin here.
And we will have a guest on shortly, Big Jeff.
Hey, everybody, Big Jeff here.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so let's get things off, guys. It's a little, it might be a little draggy this week. Joey's been doing the intro the last couple weeks, so I will do my best. Sorry, I'm struggling here with my Zoom and my notes. Okay, here we go. First topic: what is everyone wearing tonight on this beautiful day? Big Kevin, what you wearing, buddy?
So I got on the curls shirt. I just got it at the Arnold this year, and that has quickly become one of my go-to Massenomics shirts. Really liking it.
Good to hear. What about you, Big Jeff? What you got on, buddy?
Oh, I'm wearing the "Don't Curl in Me" shirt, even though I understand that joke is a little bit played out at this point. You know, it's kind of run its course, but I'm still a big fan of the "Don't Curl in Me" shirt. It's one of the shirts that started it all for me. It was probably part of my first order back from when I first heard about Massenomics. I can tell you more about that if you guys want, but yeah, sporting the "Don't Curl in Me" today.
Yeah, we'll get to that later once we actually start that interview, buddy. All right, and drinking. What's everybody drinking tonight? I'll start. Okay, so I'm actually not drinking a Wegmans orange drink this week. I got some bubbly off Amazon, a nice multi-pack. So I'm drinking a mango bubbly. So still in the orange family, but not orange.
And I'm out of sparkling water, so I'm actually drinking a ginger ale this week. And just so everyone gets the full visual picture, Big Keith here is wearing a Huge Life shirt.
I am. I forgot to do that, man. So I was talking to guys earlier before we started recording. I kind of feel that I'm more of the color commentary, not necessarily the play-by-play guy. So I'm, doing my best. But let's have some fun with this. Yes, the Huge Life shirt. It is a good one. And Big Jeff, what are you drinking?
Yeah, all color commentary this week. 3 John Maddens, no Pat Summerall, but that's right. We'll survive. Yeah, let's open this up and see what it sounds like. This is a Pure Aqua Belvia. That will be the Aldi House sparkling water, and we got a grapefruit flavor today. Delicious. Save money, live better.
Nice. I've never had I go to Aldi's maybe once a year, so I've never. Is it like significantly cheaper? Because I figure if it was on par with like general sparkling water prices, I probably wouldn't go out of my way to get there. But if it's like 30 cents a can or something, probably would try it out.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's a little bit less. It's not like shockingly cheap, but it's probably Kirkland prices, but you can buy 8 or 12 instead of 48.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So, news in some Massenomics world this week. That little follow up on maybe 2 episodes ago of the is Dante Culpepper actually a member of Massenomics Gym? I'm personally in the belief that it's just a running bit that one of the hosts is just getting a chuckle out of. But recently on the Instagram, he did post a nameplate specifically for Dante Culpepper on a locker. But I think I saw the locker like in a different video in the background, and it looked like the locker right underneath the TV. So I'm of the belief that it's just like a catch-all locker, possibly not necessarily someone's individual locker. But what do you guys think? Do you think Mr. Culpepper is actually a member of Massenomics Gym?
I think where they are in the country, it would not be unreasonable for them to have found some used Minnesota Viking, or I'm not sure where Culpepper went to college, but to find some used lockers they would have had. I actually have something similar in my gym right now. I picked up some lockers that were actually from some other local high school, and now I got lockers in the gym that I keep all my stuff in, and it had some no names, but it had like a number 6 and a number 12 sticker really prominently on there. So I think the same thing probably could have happened at the Massenomics Gym.
Possibly. Yeah, this is of particular intrigue to me. I can tell you where I went to college. You went to UCF, which is where I went to college, which is why I always chime in whenever that comes up. And yeah, I would like to believe that he is a member there. And that, maybe he'll be on the podcast one day. But I, like you, Keith, probably think that they picked up some, salvage gear from a Viking sale or something like that. But yeah, I enjoy that bit because it's got a little personal personal factor being an alumni from UCF like me.
Now Dante would be a pretty yoked power lifter. If I recall right, he was about a 6'4", 250 quarterback. He was what
Yeah, he
like
was a big dude.
Yeah, he was late 90s, early 2000s. He was not necessarily your 6'2", 220 kind of skinny quarterback back there. He was a big man. So I don't know.
I think he's definitely benching 315.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like Big Jeff over here.
That's right. Recent inductee.
Yes, sir. So how's have you guys so Kevin, have you guys been have you been getting any of that wildfire smoke coming from Canada? Because I know New York has been getting smoked. Like it's been brutal up here.
It's not been too bad, but it's enough that it's noticeable. It was really hazy all today, and my wife actually works at a daycare, so like they didn't let the kids play outside today, just out of overabundance of caution.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to say they canceled most like local any outside activity the last couple of days has pretty much been anything that's like state funded or anything like that, anything that someone could get in trouble for has been canceled. But yeah, it was 3 days ago. I was just driving back from work before I actually like opened my phone and saw anything about it, and it was just like, why is it literally like just hazy out? And then my wife had told me about it, and then it's been kind of the talk of the town the last 2 or 3 days, and it definitely like for the past 48 hours. Today's cleared up a little bit, but it's just been you just walk outside and you're like, wow, it's a campfire out there. And then you're like, oh, it's just, and everyone's like, oh, what's the big deal? And I'm like, well, it's not just trees burning, man. There's houses and signage and like, how much plastic and stuff is burning right now. It's not just a little bit of wood smoke in the air. It's some very toxic. I think New York City had like 4 times the amount of whatever the index is for how bad the air is. Whatever number 2 was like 100, and New York City was like 400 yesterday. So that was pretty scary.
Yeah, Big Murph gave us some good pictures from where she's at in the DC area, and she said that they were code maroon, and I didn't even know it went past code red. There's 2 levels that go past that. There's purple and then maroon. So like that's as bad as it gets, I guess.
You would think just either letters or numbers would make more sense, wouldn't it? Like just something that would be like a color-coded scale. I mean, other than just like green and red, like when you get all these different hues in there, wouldn't that just make it extra confusing rather than just like it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scale, whatever it is. But speaking of pictures, did you guys get in on any of that drink spotter light picture fun that one of the hosts was asking for in the Discord?
I did not. No, my drink spotter light is still the waiting order. I'm waiting for some other apparel items to come up that I want to grab. So I'm not part of the fun yet on that one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw it and I was just like, man, I really should go get some pictures. I don't remember what it like. Basically, by the time I saw it, there was already like 50 pictures posted, and I was like, okay, well, those are all good. What original post can I come up with? And I was like, all right, I see a lawnmower, I see a wall, like everything that I had quick, easy access to, that I didn't have to like do something elaborate or like take it with me to work or something. I was like, all right, everything's been taken care. Everything's already been taken a picture of. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on that one. Let's see. We are officially 44 days out from the meet, guys. Am I the only one doing? I know Big Kevin's not making it out. What about you, Jeff? Were you making it out to Aberdeen this summer?
Not to this one. We got some other things going on that are just going to make it tough to travel. Tough to get out of the area. So I'm hoping maybe there's some way that those of us outside the area can participate virtually, or I'm sure the Discord will be blowing up and there'll be a lot going on. So I'll do some lifts in honor of everybody else at the Lift Hard, Live Easy. But what about you, Keith? So you're definitely going there. You're definitely participating.
Oh, yeah.
How's it going?
Oh yeah. So I think I'm in, I don't know, what are we, like 7 weeks out, 6.5 weeks out as far as training. So historically I've always done like a 12 to 10 week prep, but we found like more recently with my coach, an 8 to 9 week prep has just been better. Like I just, there's a little bit there. Obviously there's a difference between like my off season and my prep, but like not just beating my body up for 3 months, 2 months to 2.25 months is just enough to still be able to peak fine and not just be completely destroyed. But yeah, I'm hitting some big numbers for me at least. A lot of my like RPE 8 sets are, either, whatever. My coach gives me like a weight range and an assigned RPE. So I typically will push it to the max as long as it's within that, RPE. But if I'm having a good day, regardless of what the RPE is, I'm still going to take the high number. Like tomorrow is my birthday lift party. So it's not my actual birthday. My birthday is next Wednesday, but I do a lift party where I'm hoping to have about 9 people down here, if all goes as planned. And I've got a double on deadlifts with no RPE cap. So I'm probably going to have some fun and pull something heavy, but within reason, because I still obviously have to finish my taper and peak for another 6 weeks. So, I'm not going to blow my wad too hard, but 405 for a double ought to happen. And that's kind of I'm optimistic that'll happen tomorrow. But in general, yeah, my bench is feeling great. Squat's feeling pretty good. My only real goal for the meet is to hit a bench PR. Like that's what I want to, if I walk away with a meet bench PR and considering the travel and the potential zoo shenanigans the night before, if we end up going out any the night before at all, if I walk away with 1 PR and just don't bomb out, I'll be very happy. But it'd be awesome to get a bigger crowd out there next year if this ends up being a thing.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
You got to pull some of those big. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
I would say I'm really looking forward to it too. I can't go this year. I'm hoping to get to it next year, but I'd already had this whole meet prep program that I had set up for myself, and so I'm still gonna peak for that day and that weekend. I'm gonna have some friends and cousins who are in the area come over, and they're gonna try and pull some big numbers too. So we're just still in meet prep mode, and just like Jeff said earlier, we're gonna try to do something virtually and just maybe share some videos on the Discord with everybody else.
That sounds like it'll be a blast. I know there should be a good live stream. I think one of the hosts said there will be a live stream. I don't think he committed to being a good live stream just because, there's only so much effort you can put into that when you're actually still trying to host the meet and put the meet on and all that fun stuff. But we might be seeing some Massenomics singlets if they can get the new ones delivered in time. I know they just had a recent batch they were all excited about, and there was I heard there was something wrong with the how it displayed the crotch, but I believe it's what the final verdict was. It was just, the legs were a little bit too long and the crotch was a little bit too small. So they'll have to work on that and see if they can't get it figured out.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for at least a dozen people to all be wearing exact matching outfits and pointing at each other like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, that'd be classic. That would be really good.
Yeah. I'm interested in a live stream. Do they have the bandwidth for that in Aberdeen? What's the internet situation out there? Can they handle a major streaming event like that?
I imagine the bandwidth would be better at the ice rink than it would have been the American Inn or the Americanin, however you pronounce it. I kept reading it and I was like, how do you actually say that pun hotel name? I don't get it. So anything jumping out at you guys you want to touch on?
Yeah, well, speaking of, small dong pouches, have you guys heard about Massenomics?
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of Massenomics is the contest that they put on. And it's something that we actually get to participate in as supporting members all the time. A few times a year, they put on a fun contest and give the followers a chance to win prizes like gift cards or Frankenstein apparel, custom artwork, or checks of various sizes. In the past, there have been meme contests and a few different themed video contests. I myself actually podiumed in 2 different contests, and they have 2 contests coming up this summer. And I actually have the inside scoop on one of them. We actually talked about it a little bit right now, and that's actually the Lift Hard, Live Easy powerlifting meet that takes place on July 22nd in Western Northeast South Dakota. I have no idea on the other contests yet, so stay tuned. So thank you, Massenomics, and you know what they say, come for the beer parody lifting apparel and stay for the active online community of like-minded lifters.
That was a very good sponsor read. We'll get if it was something we did on our episode, I'd give you 2 cool beans just for that sponsor read alone. Let's see. So I feel that we had some really good feedback from last week's episode. I feel that it was might have been the most meme worthy episode we've had so far, and the most some catchphrases and taglines and whatnot. I just did you guys enjoy listening to those this week? And I think one of you guys said that you kind of saw all the memes before you heard the episode. So any funny stories or anything of just how you the first time you heard it or received some of the funny bits from last week?
I was laughing out loud listening to that. So I saw the memes come through. I saw Joey in front of like some NASCAR. I'm like, oh, that looks kind of funny. He's got his pit vipers on. He looks kind of like America, which is funny because he's Canadian. But then I actually heard it, and that he thought that Roll Tide was a NASCAR thing when the Tide car would roll over, and I was dying at that. I told my wife about it. She cracked up, and the whole platypus bit, like basically, I think what we're revealing here on this unpaid and underrated podcast is, besides lifting, none of us really know much about anything. But I do have a follow up on from, I think that's 2 episodes ago now, on Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. I still have not seen it, but I do know what a platypus is.
Yeah, you got me beat there, because dude, when I looked at the picture of it, like, I was like, that can't be real. Like, the beak and the paws are so shiny that it's almost like a plastic look. And it's not like I saw it and I was like, oh, I've seen that before like 100 times. I just didn't know what it was called. Like, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that or have any reference of that in my entire 38 years of existence. So that was that's not the first thing I think I've learned on this podcast. It's funny. Do you guys have those experiences where you kind of like, it's something you just somehow lived your whole life without knowing or knowing that that's what it was called, and then that's all you see for the next like month? It's just like once it's instilled in your brain of what it is, it's just like, oh, okay, deja vu, because that's, now I know what that is now. It's just, I haven't had that moment yet, but I'm assuming next time I see a platypus, I'll be like, oh yeah, apparently it's been in front of me this whole time. Speaking of stuff being in front of me, my wife gave me a pretty awesome early birthday present. I got the new 28. So it's not the new 29 millimeter Texas Power Bar, but I'm fine with that because they don't have those in Cerakote. So she got me a nice orange Cerakote Texas Power Bar for the gym. So very excited with that. I was very much on the fence. Like, I wasn't going to buy it myself just because I know Cerakote doesn't hold up well, and it's just going to get beat to crap and all chipped up. So I didn't want to drop $400 on a bar that was going to get chipped up. But I did have it on my wish list that she has access to. And, she basically couldn't hold out any longer. And she knew I was having this lift party this weekend. She was like, hey, I got a present. There's a present for you in the garage. And, it was a winner. I was very happy with that.
She's a keeper. That's for sure.
So far, I think we're, I don't know. It's 2000, however long 2006 was ago, whatever that is in, platypus years.
You got me beat by 1 year.
Oh, nice. So, okay, we've got sorry. So we have a relatively new segment we're going to get to real quick. It's where we go over last week's Massenomics episode. We're going to give it some JD Powers, however we feel about it. This is your honest opinion. No matter what, give me your honest opinion. And last week's episode, we had Ryan Lapidat famous from King of the Lifts. What about you, Kevin? Did you get a chance to listen to last week's episode?
Yeah, I haven't finished it completely yet, but I'm about halfway through the interview right now, and I had to double check my playback speed. Normally, I listen at 1.2, and it seems like Ryan likes to talk really quickly, and I thought I must have been in like the 2.5 playback speed while he was going, but I got used to it pretty quickly. Sounds like he's really excited about what he does, and I didn't know he's been around as long as 2016 as the guys from the other podcasts have been. But so with all that said, I think I got to give it a 5.0 JD Powers.
That's a good rating. That's a solid rating. We'll have to add that to this. Now, did you start the spreadsheet like I asked you to last week?
Yes, I got the spreadsheet going.
Nice, my man.
Be able to find the mean median mode of all these ratings.
And what about you, Big Jeff? What are you going to give last week's episode with Lapidat?
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I think I listened about 1.5 speed, which is very fast. And I have to admit, since I started doing that, my comprehension goes down and my recollection goes down. But I definitely remember the interview. It was interesting. Somebody said Ryan is Canadian. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, he is.
Because his accent, his manner of speaking, I thought he was straight out of Brooklyn or something like that. I mean, he sounded very thick accent there the way he spoke. But interesting, again, his history, like Kevin was saying, all the names that he dropped, kind of incredible. The amount he's seen in his time commentating, and that story about him, starting to work with the IPF and then starting to work the comment was very cool. I like to leave a little bit of room for what else is out there. I'm going to give it a solid 4.0, JD. And, it was great podcast.
Hey, it's Big Nate here. I just wanted to take a quick moment to address the elephant in the room. Big Jeff did give episode 376 of the Massenomics podcast a 4 JD Power and Associates awards. He has since redacted his erroneous rating and issued the following Notes app apology.
I'm sorry.
All right, thanks, Big Jeff. And from the crew over here at the Unpaid and Underrated podcast, we do want to again apologize for the error, and the guest who gave the incorrect rating has been sacked. All right, back to the show.
All right, I don't know if that's allowed in this bit, but I guess we'll let you get away with it this week, and we'll see if we can't make up for that. So, I liked it. It was a good episode. I wish King of the Lifts, Brian, would have talked a little shit about Two White Lights and got a little more of a rivalry. I kind of feel I can see why the other host likes doing it, because it is funny to stir the pot, like to just get some rivalry going, get some banter going between two different opposing forces. So he didn't really have anything negative to say about anyone. So for that, I'll have to go ahead and maybe deduct a little bit of points, but I think I'll go ahead and give it a 6 JDs to offset, Jeff's 4 for this week. And that's where we're at. So make sure you guys tune into Massenomics podcast. Preferably it'd be your second most listened to podcast of the week. But I personally, selfishly would like you to listen to ours first if you get the chance. But if you have to listen to theirs first just because it comes out a day early, I understand if you got nothing else to do. So let's see. We are at that time. I think we're going to go ahead and dive right in with our guest questions. So we kind of informally had Jeff, introduce himself, but this is the Big Jeff session of the podcast. So welcome, Big Jeff. How are you doing, buddy?
Oh, very good. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on the Unpaid and Underrated podcast.
Thank you. We are glad to have you. It was kind of a little work in progress. I'm a very OCD person, and I like to plan ahead. And I reached out to Jeff and a couple other another guy, and I got like I'm pretty sure I can make it, but I'm not sure. And then I went ahead and reached out to another person, and then Jeff did confirm back. And then I was just like, let me just start a group chat, and these guys can fight it out over a death match who gets on first. But we got that all squared away. I need to be a little bit more like Joey sometimes, just go with the flow. But I feel like other people need to be a little bit more like me and be a little more prepared in general. But that's just my way of looking at things in general. So, Big Jeff, I got a really important question. Was your wife excited when you came up after your thing? The
today
infamous...
or in the past? Yeah, I see. It's a big hit job. That's right off the bat, starting right with this. Actually, you reaching out ahead of time and just connecting with her and asking her some questions and kind of getting her informed about the podcast was an incredible help, because I could tell her today, hey, my thing starts in about 20 minutes instead of I would be up after my thing, which, that doesn't mean anything. That whole thing, I think it was Big Joey who really captured it the best with the Bart Simpson, I didn't do it, boy meme is, sort of how I feel with all that. And I think at the end of that episode, Bart wound up getting out of it because something else came in, as like the new I didn't do it, boy. So maybe Big Joey's Roll Tide is the new, up after my thing, and we just start working on that for a little while.
The Roll Tide was pretty classic last week. So yeah, that was definitely, I think a lot of people, if anyone wasn't familiar with Big Jeff at that point in the Discord, if it was just someone, if you were just like a casual Discord guy and you weren't in there every day, or reading every post, I think for a solid few days. And I mean, it pretty much like, ran Discord for a minute. And then I say it probably comes up once a week, and at least now, like there's not a week that goes by in the past few months that someone hasn't said a reference to up after his thing, or I'll be up after my thing, etc. So we appreciate a good little running joke like that. So we were glad you were able to contribute that to us. And if no one's familiar with what we've been talking about, so on the other podcast, because really, if you weren't listening to, if you're not a supporting member and you weren't actually on the live Discord, where the two hosts let everyone else listen in. So I think it might have even been before they started to record. Jeff somehow ended up not being muted back when one of the hosts was still getting their feet wet on Zoom, and who they were blocking permissions to. And Jeff just signed right in and didn't even click anything, I don't believe. It's just like he just didn't realize his mic was hot. And we just caught him, mid-sentence talking to his wife about, saying, hey, I'll be up right after my thing. And, there was 20 or 30 of us in the chat that like heard it live and just immediately started rolling. And I don't think no, it didn't make it on the actual podcast, but enough of us heard it, and it'll live on infamously via that. So that
it does.
we
It does
really
live in infamy.
So, Big Kev, you got anything you want to ask Jeff? Any of these questions? Anything you wanted to know about Mr. Jeff?
Yeah, so we'll just dive right in here. So Keith slid into, I think it was your wife's DMs. He's got I think Scant actually has to watch out for Keith. Keith keeps going into all these women's DMs here. So,
in my defense, I have asked permission for most of them, or because half the time it's like, sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, let's click on their profile picture and then here's the wife's tag. But then other people, like, they're just, I couldn't find Jeff's wife actually at first, so he had to point me in the right direction.
He's not terribly active. She would have never seen it if I would have told her, hey, some dude is going to randomly reach out and ask you a bunch of questions.
Go check your hidden messages where all those those bots come in and try to sell you Bitcoin and steroids. So speaking of taking steroids, you went almost that route. So we heard that you were once a 140-pound man, and you went on the Hagomad diet. You drank half a gallon of milk a day to bulk up to this beefcake that we have before us now.
I did. That was that was, I guess, the benefit of getting some coaching. I mean, I spend many, many years just trying different stuff in the gym, in and out of the gym. My sort of natural body type, if I didn't do anything and, didn't attempt to count how much I eat or lift weights, 130, 140 pound skinny fat, just kind of, not a whole lot of definition, not a whole lot to speak of. And probably the reason I struggled and failed in the gym year after year was probably just not eating enough, right? I'm not a big eater, don't have a huge appetite. Even now I struggle, if I'm trying to bulk up and eat a lot of food. So yeah, coach I had at the time said, pretty much, well, you're not going to lift anything if you don't start putting some weight on. And you should probably start drinking like half a gallon of whole milk a day. So here I am, 36 probably at the time, no business really eating like that or consuming food like that. But, packing a couple shakers of milk to bring to work and throw in the fridge and drink for the day, and a couple more, shakers when I get home. And of course, still working out. So making protein shakes with whole milk and all that kind of stuff. Go out and visit family, and that was like another running joke with family for a while. With my in-laws, they'd be buying milk for me. And no, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all this. I don't care. Just dump it down the drain. But yeah, I was definitely on the half a gallon of milk a day for a while. Definitely has me to the point now where I'm trying to cut the waistline back just a little bit. Not the cleanest way, but also probably wouldn't be anywhere near as strong as I am right now if I hadn't just sort of jumped in and did that dirty bulk, because just needed the change.
So I think I heard you just saying there that you were 36 when you really got serious about lifting.
Probably about that, yeah.
Okay. What got you into
2018, 2019. Again, sort of always aspired to be more athletic, to be stronger, to, always sort of watch sports and was into it, but never had the opportunity to feel like I was part of it. As you guys know, my day job is as a financial planner. And so the company I was at, we would do some events sometimes at, different sporting events, golf events, things like that. Most of my clientele was retired clients at the time. And of course, I wore a suit most days to work. So you didn't really know what my body looked like because, I was dressed up going to work, long sleeves, all that kind of stuff. So I'm at an event one day and we're hosting a few clients there. One of my clients gets here, 70-year-old man. And, he comes over and we kind of have that exchange where like we think we know each other. Obviously, I know who he is. Shakes my hand, says, "Oh, Jeff, sorry, I didn't recognize you without your suit on. You look a little smaller." And I think the president of the bank was there with us, and he and I got along, but he's one to kind of give you a hard time. So he was giving me a little hard time about it as well. And that was pretty much it. Like a switch flipped in my head. The rage just started to build inside of me. This 70-year-old man told me I was looking small that day. And, I went out and probably the next day actually signed up for a boot camp class, and did some of that for a while. That was not really that was cool because it got me introduced to some stuff that I hadn't done before. Got me training with a barbell a little bit, which I really hadn't done, but wasn't right for my goals and my body type necessarily. So kind of moved on from there to other kinds of training, and weave my way through starting strength and some other online coaching, and basically to the point I am now. Got more engaged and whatnot. So yeah, that's my origin. That's my villain origin story.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear. So yeah, 36, that couldn't have been that long ago. So when was this is a question we kind of forgot to ask the last couple of guests, really. Just your Massenomics, your entry to into the world of Massenomics, whether that be just following them on Instagram, listening to the podcast, finally diving in and becoming a supporting member. How was that experience for you, and how has it changed your life for the better, maybe?
Yeah. So I'm wearing it now. I'm wearing the Don't Curl on Me shirt. And listen to, especially when I was commuting to work back when I worked for a company, of course, had long drives to and from work. So I listened to a lot of podcasts. But I was listening to Starting Strength Radio with Ripito. And of course, I was doing that program for a while. That's a big part of just, again, how I started, lifting in this powerlifting style. And Mark's opening up his podcast. And of course, I'm in the car, so I can only hear it. I can't see it. He says, "Yeah, I'm wearing this baby shit yellow T-shirt from a company called Massenomics," and he's right. That's a perfect description of the color. It looks terrible with my skin tone, but he's talking about this "Don't Curl on Me" shirt, and he says Massenomics, and I don't have any idea what Massenomics is at that point. I'm not really like that deeply engaged in the Instagram world and whatnot yet. So Massenomics. I assume that's some kind of like Massachusetts-based economics club or something like that. Rip tends to get political on the show sometimes. We're not afraid to. So this is probably some conservative economics organization that maybe has a lifting bent or some reason. So I got to check these guys out when I get home to send. I got to see this baby shit T-shirt. So logged on, checked it out. Oh, this is what that is. It's totally different, but interesting and funny, and sort of aligns with my personality of not taking yourself too seriously and enjoying lifting. But the lift hard, lift easy wasn't a thing back then, but that's kind of what the lifestyle was. And followed them. I think I actually commented on a post at one point. Well, in fact, I know I did. I'd never really engaged much on Instagram back then, and Massenomics liked it back. Now, of course, I didn't know that they just like everybody's posts, and but that's how they got you, and that's how they bring you in. So I said, "Oh, these guys are engaging. They want to engage with me." So anyway, just kept following them. Finally ordered some stuff. Got like the Weekend Warrior shirt and the Don't Curl on Me shirt, and obviously a few other things here and there. So yeah, I have Starting Strength Radio, I guess, to thank for getting me involved with Massenomics, and it's been cool because when you work out at a commercial gym, as we've heard, especially on the main podcast and whatnot, people are often not doing the same thing you're doing, unless you're at like a real hardcore gym, powerlifting gym, right? So you don't necessarily engage with people there much. Then I switched to the garage gym. Don't really engage with people, very much there, of course, because it's just me in the garage. So it's cool to have a group like this where we can be that gym community outside the gym.
Yeah, I love to hear that. I always love when people kind of have the same opinion about that with me. Just calling this a community. There's like 30 guys that I could DM and get a response. Like I could have like something major in my life happening and like need to actually seriously talk to someone. And like, I know 30 dudes that I've only met a handful of them in person, and any of them would be there for me in a heartbeat if I needed something. So like that's how many of the people have that like virtually like this. So, and in a few months, a lot of us will have it in person as well. But like, I'm grateful that we've been able to build this community, via the Massenomics podcast and, through them, have this whole side thing. It's really awesome.
Absolutely.
But speaking about taking yourself seriously, so one thing that caught me in some of my research that kind of caught me off guard, I wouldn't say it's not a bad thing. If anything, it's kind of some of the other hosts are really getting into it also. Are you in a book club, Big Jeff? I hear you're in a book club of some sort. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, I am. I feel partly responsible for all the book talk and Massenomics. It's just cool. So some combination of friends, former coworkers, just a small group of us got together. We started a book club, I don't know, probably a couple of years ago, really based around just business books and that sort of thing. And we ventured into some other types of categories. I'm usually the one that brings up the more business adjacent books like Meditations. We've read Art of War. We've read Atlas Shrugged. Me and another guy really wanted to read that one, so we spent some time reading that. And it's a lot of fun. It definitely, there's been a lot of book talk, Massenomics Book Club, that kind of stuff going on. Would encourage folks to get together and maybe read some of this stuff as a group if they want to, because the discussion is always good. Another way just to interact with good people as well. Drive home the message or see how somebody else is trying to experience the message or trying to apply it to their life. And you'll maybe retain some of the information more and just enjoy it. And I tell you too, it's the accountability as well. I mean, think about it like this, like, Big Keith, Big Kevin, why do you compete in powerlifting?
A lot of it's camaraderie, honestly. I mean, yeah, it's fun to challenge myself. Well, for me, honestly, it boils down to just motivation to train like 3 or 4 days a week. If I didn't have a meet if I didn't do 1 or 2 meets a year, I would get very complacent, and I would either, one, just freaking try to PR every week and hurt myself, or two, just be like, oh, I don't need to work out this week. I don't have anything to train for. I don't feel like it. So me always, and I'm financially invested also, but I've met 100 people at meets in the last 10 years that are all, I'm close personal friends with several of them to the day still. That's half people that come and train in my gym or people I've met at meets.
Right. So it's kind of the relationship there to the book club is, hey, when I know we're meeting first Thursday of the month and I got to have this book done, or I'm not going to have anything to talk about, it's the accountability that helps me get through a dozen books a year instead of just, buying a couple and shelving them and getting halfway through them. So, having those deadlines in your life helps you stick to whatever goals you might have. And it's the same with lifting. Again, I don't compete to win medals, even though I win them all the time because I'm masters now. But it keeps me accountable to the training because I don't want to look like a fool on that date when the meet comes around, and I want to do my best that day. So I got a deadline to prep for.
And so you were just giving some good analogies there between the book club and the reading and with the lifting that we do. And I think on several of your Instagram posts, you've made some good analogies between lifting and personal finance. And so I'd like to know what are some of your favorite analogies that you've made with that?
Yeah. I'm the self-proclaimed powerlifting financial planner. I'm always curious to know if somebody's gonna call me out on that or somebody's gonna challenge me. I know there are other people in finance that lift. I know that, but I think we can niche it down enough to where I can be, specific to where, well, I'm the strongest guy that does this thing. But yeah, the social media thing is tough. I did kind of the traditional social media, and I still have an account where I just put very basic personal finance stuff out there. Gets very limited engagement, but by trying to combine some of the fitness, powerlifting analogies with fitness analogies, it does, I think, drive a little bit more engagement, and at least lets me stand out and be different and doing something that maybe not other people, not everybody else is doing. Some analogies that I like that come to mind are, we were just talking about meet prep and talking about, why having those deadlines is important. One thing I like to talk through with people is when you think about how you save and invest and how aggressive you should be, right? Should you be buying all stocks or should you be putting your money in cash? Well, it depends how close you are to your goal. So, if I said to you, there's kind of a phrase about peaking, what can and you can't, what can you can and not do as you're approaching peaking, like strength wise? Any idea what I'm getting at there?
With dialing up the intensity and cutting back on the volume, that sort of thing with peaking for a meet.
Right. And what I'm getting at is you can do a lot to make yourself weaker during the peaking phase by, being too aggressive and injuring yourself versus just protecting what you've already built. You've kind of built all your strength in those weeks leading up to the peak, and then you're there to preserve it before the day comes. So that's kind of like as you approach a goal. If you're saving money to buy a car, or if you're saving money to send your kid to college or something like that, in that, 6 months or a year before you're actually ready to spend that money, it's time to shore it up and protect it, take it out of the market, not be risky with it, because you can lose a lot and, change your life that way. You're not going to probably make that much over that short amount of time. So that, that's one that I like to think about. I did a video that was like, mutual funds are like the compound lifts of financial plan, right? So you think about, if you don't know what a mutual fund is, well, you think about buying individual stocks. So you could buy stock at Amazon You could buy stock in Nvidia. You could buy stock at AT&T. Like that's all well and good, but you are putting all your money in that one company, and you're subject to the risk associated with that one company. Whereas if you buy a mutual fund, which might own 500 companies or 1,000 companies on your behalf, you're kind of spreading your risk across a wide range of companies, like a compound lift that kind of spreads the exercise, spreads the movement across your body, across multiple groups, right? You're kind of diversifying and being efficient with your training with compound lifts, and you can do the same thing with your money, spreading it around, putting money in a bunch of different places at once, participating in different corners of the market at once by making one investment in one particular fund. So, those are a couple I like. And yeah, I've got a few more on the Instagram page. And if there's other ones you're curious about or a concept you don't quite understand, you reach out. Maybe I can make a reel about it.
So I've got a little bit of a question here. So I'm curious if it's gonna work with your parents here real quick. So did it take them 14 years to save up for the second baby? Was that why they waited so long? There's a 14-year age gap between you and your sibling?
There is, yeah. I've got an older brother who's 14 years older than me, and I don't know. I don't know that I ever got the full explanation. I don't know, what the explanation is, but it was interesting. I've got a brother. Some ways, it's almost like I'm an only child because he was moved out of the house, by the time I was in middle school and whatnot, and so kind of had the house to myself for most of that. So all the negative characteristics you associate with an only child, I have those as well, and but then also we're almost closer later in life because oddly enough, his kids are close to the same age as my kids, just based on when that happened in our lives. We have a lot of similar music interests. I kind of gravitated towards a lot of the stuff he likes to listen to, just because again I was around that and it's different. I enjoy it. So yeah, that's an interesting relationship. Again, I'd say we're closer now probably than we were when I was 5 and he was what would that be? 16. You can, or more than that. What was it? 14, 19. You can imagine how different, what a different place your lives are in at that point. So yeah, it's a different dynamic.
That's funny. Like I basically asked one question, and like in your response, you almost hit on like 2 or 3 of the other follow-ups there. So one of them I'll get to real quick. So you mentioned that you enjoyed his type of music. So that kind of might experience why you're such a fan of 80s rock music. And with that, so you have to, you can only pick one. So one of each. So favorite rock band, favorite rock song, doesn't have to be the same band or from the band. So
okay. I think without question, my favorite band's probably Megadeth. It's just my style of music. I mean, they're as far as I'm concerned, like the most talented band out there, right? I mean, they have incredible guitar, incredible drums, interesting. The lyrics are okay. They probably maybe fall down a little bit on the vocals, but Dave Mustaine is not the worst singer in the world. They're certainly worse. I do not like this, like the more modern sort of metal where people just like screaming on the microphone. I'm not really a big fan of that. So yeah, I mean, favorite band and probably favorite song is Holy War's Punishment Due, which again is just 6.5 minutes of hair on fire thrash metal. Since it was the same band for the song, I'll put my very close second is definitely Iron Maiden. But again, incredibly talented. And I would say they pick up on just the vocals and the writing of their songs, the stories that they tell in some of their songs. It is, kind of an experience to listen to their stuff. So those are my top 2, but I think for sure my, Desert Island band and album is probably Holy Wars and Rust in Peace by Megadeth.
That's cool. That's cool that you and your brother can kind of share that affection for I'm assuming he would have grew up he probably would have been a younger guy in the 80s. I was born in, I imagine he would have been, his era would have been, late 80s music. So that kind of makes a lot more sense there. But you mentioned that you guys' kids are about the same age. So with him being a lot older, your wife did mention that you guys got married pretty early. So and then you're a dad of two young girls. And how is that? How is that correlated to being this big bulky lifter guy drinking 2 gallons of milk, but then you got to go play, but then you're the girl dad, and we'll drop and do everything for your kids. So is there have your daughters shown any interest in the gym, or are they ever out there with having a home gym? Has the family kind of been like, hey, let's get on this with dad? That looks cool. I'm going to imitate that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what they think about some of the craziness sometimes. My wife does think we got married young. We got married to, relatively young, I guess, compared to our, friends and people in our generation, I suppose. We got married when we were probably like 26, 27. Two girls. Yeah, right. I did kind of depends who you ask and who you're talking to, right? Two girls that are middle school age, which I can't tell you how much fun that is right now. But yeah, they get interested in the garage gym. They come out sometimes. They're always like trying to do pull-ups on the pull-up bar. Or they ask me how much it is, or my youngest one always asks me, so is that the most you've ever done? Like, no, it's not the most I've ever done. Or sometimes it is the most I've ever done. So that, they do kind of just curious about what's going on. They're still like, they're obviously like too young to train, and, they may or may not want to like get into it. That's totally up to them, but definitely just, taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, having a focus on it, having a focus on just being dedicated to something, building strength, having some discipline about something. And, they've come to both of my meets. They don't stay the whole time. I don't really expect them to, but they'll come for a little bit and just kind of check it out and see what's going on, and watch a little bit of my lifts and whatnot. So it's cool. I think they like it. I think sometimes my younger one, if I'm out there in the garage and she's bringing friends over, she maybe is a little bit embarrassed about that. But that's just because they get embarrassed by everything at that age. And my job as their dad is to try to embarrass them as much as possible. So if their friends are coming by, I really crank up the Iron Maiden and make sure that they get full garage experience.
And are dad jokes another way that you like to embarrass them? Is that something you like to get a good zinger in front of her friends, just to kind of show them who the king of the house is with the dad joke mania?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Whatever I can do just to drive them nuts while their friends are over. It's really, it's your responsibility. It's the law as a dad to do that, especially with girls.
Now, am I reading this right? Are you actually originally from Kevin's home state also? Or am I reading
I'm not originally from there. My family's from there. My brother was born up there. So, I have close ties. We did a lot of vacationing, if you can call it going to Cleveland on vacation. We did a lot of trips up there when I was a kid. 2-day car drives from Jacksonville to Ohio. And most of my extended family's still up there.
Yep.
Yeah, just going with that. So if you do have some ties to Ohio, then obviously we have the intense debate of Ohio being in the Midwest or not. And I think one thing that actually kind of ties it together with that you might be able to give us some good perspective on is I've heard that people say that Ohio is the Florida of the Midwest. So it's it's still technically part of that larger group, but there's just something off about it. The way that, the Florida man and like the craziness that goes on in Florida. Is there any perspective you can give on that coming from having people in both states? Yeah,
probably is. Probably that whole like black sheep kind of thing. People hate us because they ain't us, and it's probably the same up there in Ohio. So I was born and raised in Florida. I also went to college here, so I didn't really leave the state in any meaningful way until I was in my 20s. And I didn't know people were, dogging us that much until I left. Like I knew there was some jokes, but moved to North Carolina at that point. And oh, you people really do hate us. I didn't know that. But yeah, definitely walked to a different beat. Definitely have, some interesting folks down here. There's crazy people in every state. So I think that does get played up a little bit. Again, it's maybe it's the Massenomics running joke of the country. But hey, if you hate it so much, stop coming down here to visit us all the time. We're fine without you. We're getting along okay here. But you got to be. My dad always said you got to be tough to live in Florida. He's right. We got all the giant bugs. We've got all the. We were even talking about the invasive pythons at one point. I think somehow.
Yeah. I couldn't do this.
Talk about everything.
I mean, I'm not necessarily afraid of snakes, but I think does anyone else like so my wife is deathly afraid of snakes, and I think like that's kind of like seeped into me a little bit just because you've been with someone for 20 years, you just kind of like almost accept or you kind of absorb some of their fears and some of the things that annoy them. And it's just like, I definitely don't like snakes anymore as much. I definitely have more of a fear with snakes now for being with her for 50, 2 decades, whatever, than I did maybe when I was 20. So I just that always I get a kick out of that. But Florida is a state I have never gone to. I think the farthest south I've been is Carolinas. So well, no, I guess I've been to Georgia, just Atlanta, just for the airport. But as far as like actually visiting and like doing tourism stuff, it would be Carolina. Sorry, let me just zoom up here. We go.
We got lots of Waffle Houses too, so enjoy it.
So, I mean, I kind of figured that's why you started working from home is just Florida was so uninhabitable to go outside that you just couldn't stress it anymore. But with that, so how long have you been working from home now?
Yeah, I've been working from home. I mean, we can count the time where my previous company shifted to work from home, which was when everybody did, which was
Okay.
March of 2020. And I never went back to an
Oh,
office except to get my stuff. So
lucky you.
I left that job in November of 2020, went through the process of setting up my own registered investment advisory firm. Takes some time, so I got approved by the state of Florida in March of 2021. So you can say I've been permanent work from home business owner for a little bit over 2 years now.
So would you say so you worked from home for call it 6 months, whatever it was, while you still were employed by another company, and then call it 2.5, 3 years by yourself right now? Did you pick up any bad habits while you were still working for another company? And do you do you work harder working for yourself than you would when you work from home for another company?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and it's very hard. I could answer that in a bunch of different ways, right? Like, yes, I absolutely work harder for myself, than anybody else. I mean, this is my baby, this is my thing. I also started from zero, so having no income is a driver for you to work hard. So there's that whole thing too. I mean, I'm still building a business back to the levels I was at and the levels I expected to be. Right, it's a process, and still working through that. So I bust my ass for this business, no doubt about it. Is it difficult to work from home? Yes. Are there many distractions at home? Yeah, absolutely. Am I the kind of person who you would call, well organized and functions well without structure? No. So, I mean, I struggled to be as efficient as I was, right, when I worked for another company and people were feeding me stuff to do all day, and I had tasks and I had objectives and I had, bosses and people that were going to expect to hear from me every week. But that's also part of the beauty of working for yourself is I also don't have to put up with that. I mean, so yeah, I mean, don't let anybody kid you in thinking that working for yourself doesn't at least start out with a lot of 60-hour weeks and putting in a lot more effort and time than you were. But structure is difficult, and you've got to have the personality and not join discords and do things that allow you to focus on your work. It's not easy. I have some tricks, some ways I try to focus in on that.
So I got one. It's a little diving into your work, so feel free not to answer it, and we can just move on. But so working for yourself, have you basically been able to invoke your veto card on a client before? Basically, someone that just was such an a-hole that you're just like, I don't want to do business with you anymore, and I don't have to because I can replace you're replaceable. Whereas you couldn't do that working for another firm necessarily, but you can as working for yourself.
Right. I will say I did have one client where there was sort of a mutual parting of ways, like, and it was 100% my fault. I did not set great expectations about what sort of the meeting cadence and things were going to look like up front. And so as a result, it was just expectations I couldn't meet. And I had to say, you know what, let's just kind of wrap up what you have and close it out and move on. And that's fine. It wasn't at all anything where like I liked working with the person very much. It just wasn't going to work out. I've been fortunate enough to where I haven't had to like fire a client now. Everybody has stories and I'm sure it will come up. It's much more though now about taking on the people I want to take on. So you do what I do and you work at a large firm, and it's a little bit different in different places, but at least where I was at most recently, they dump 400 or 500 people on you. Say, here are the people that you're responsible for calling and generating initial business from, and when they leave, we're not going to be happy about it. Versus now, it's a much lower volume business. I know, my end number of clients will probably be like 60 or 70 or something like that, and that's it. People I can still deliver very high touch service to, and my website is set up very much in a way that it's relatively clear who I work with. When I have the intro call with somebody, if the vibe is off, as they say, then I'm just not going to pursue it, right? And I'm not going to encourage that person to sign on the way I would with somebody who, we have a great 30-minute intro, and their problems are the kind of problems I solve, and the kind of person they're looking for is a person like me, and they're not going to be, just doing all the sort of bad habits. Part of my job is to help people work on things and correct bad habits and be accountable. But there's people out there that just, you can tell they're not built to work with somebody. So yeah, those people really ideally just never sign on in the first place.
That makes sense. It's really good insight from that side of the table, from being a small business owner like that. So I think this is the time we're going to segue into one of our other newer segments. That actually no, it's a pre-existing, it's a long-standing segment, if you will. It's the Joey Silly Question. Joey couldn't be here this week, and he wasn't able to. He's basically put it in my hands to come up with a silly question this week. So I'm not as silly as him. So it might not be as funny as a hypothetical question that I'm going to ask you guys both. So in this magic hypothetical world, so just play loose with it with me. I don't want to get too in the weeds with it. But all right, so one food item for the rest of your life you can consume as much as you want, and it'll be 0 net calories, 0 carbs, 0 protein, nothing. It's basically just all you're going to get from it is like, it's going to be like drinking water. It's just placebo. What food item would that be and why? I can give you mine first if you want some time to think about it. But God, this might not go over as funny as I thought it would, because Jeff said he doesn't like to eat that much and doesn't have a big appetite. I'm not really sure if Kevin's eating appetite, but I'm the only visible fat guy on this episode. So I've got answers that correlate with being a fat guy. I'm curious if theirs will or not.
So is this like one food for the rest of our life, or just like a cheat meal that doesn't actually add calories?
So I'll give you mine and kind of go through my druthers of how I come up with it, so you can kind of figure out where I'm. So in this hypothetical, yes, to me it's one item that you can eat every day, but also this is the part that I've kind of gone back for. Do you have to pay for it or not? So I think you should have to pay for it. So it has to be something that will financially fit in your portfolio of your diet, basically. But yeah, it adds nothing. So if you want to just be like, oh, I love ribeye steak and it's so good, but then that's where you get your 200 grams of protein from every day, because it's literally it doesn't exist. It's almost like you're not eating it, but you get the satiation from it, if you will, and you get the flavor, obviously. So for me, I've got two. I've got 1A and 1B. So I'll go 1B first. So this would be the one that I would ditch if I had to actually pick one, and I would go ranch dressing. Because if I no, so like a good, amazing, like I'm talking Outback ranch dressing, Longhorn Steakhouse ranch dressing, some like high quality, like good restaurants, like homemade fresh ranch dressing. And why I would go with that is if that ranch dressing that I'll use as a dipping sauce is 0 carbs, 0 calories, 0 fat, I can eat like so much more shitty rubber chicken at work. To just power through my regular food. I'll use it as an additive to power through just bland meat. I could have, I don't like eating like steak leftover as much just because it's not as good. And I don't like microwaving steak necessarily. So I eat a lot of cold. If I do eat steak, it's typically cold. I eat cold chicken every day for work. So being able to add a couple cups or, a couple servings of like just really good quality ranch and be able to power through my lunch every day, that would be an awesome thing to do. I could add ranch to, French fries, but then I'm only eating the French fries and I'm not getting the carbs from the million calories and fat from that. So ranch would be like my second choice that I will disregard. But my number one choice, if I could add one hypothetical food to my diet for the rest of my life that doesn't count towards macros, cheesecake. I could eat a piece of cheesecake of some sort 3 meals a day, And I'm sure to call back to Aldi's, I'm sure Aldi's has an adequate cheesecake that I could buy and spend like $10 a week and go through a cheesecake and make it last all week and get a dessert fix that, then I'm not overindulging, because that's my problem. I'll eat 3 high protein, healthy meals. And then I'll be like, well, what's for dessert? And I even try to turn my desserts into protein. Like I'll have like a protein bar and a protein shake for dessert a lot of times, just to like get that sugar fix. But at the end of the day, there's times where I'm like, I need to go get some ice cream. I need to go get some donuts. I need to get some cake. Like I have a big addiction to food like that. So for me, yeah, ranch is my second choice, but I would ultimately, I think I'd have to choose cheesecake. So what do you guys, if you have enough time to think, and feel free to druthers it out as you talk. You can even, verbalize your thoughts if you haven't figured it out yet. But I'm very curious, in this hypothetical world, what you guys are picking.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Big Keith. I mean, what about a ranch flavored cheesecake? Why don't you simply combine the two?
That sounds horrible. That sounds so bad. No, so and my cheesecake of actually, I was at dinner with my family last week, and we were at Cheesecake Factory, and it's like, well, what cheesecake do you want? I'm like, the plain one with strawberries. Like, that's all I'll ever get. Like, I think I did get like fancy ones, and I got the Oreo one, or I got the peanut butter cup one, and I was just like, it's just not the same. Like, I want my cheesecake to taste like a cheesecake with a little bit of strawberries. I don't want my cheesecake to taste like a candy bar or a cupcake. Like, I don't, to me, it's just a plain cheesecake.
There you go.
So what do you think, Kevin? Are you? I see
the
wheels
I'm really
turning.
thinking hard about this. Yeah,
I know.
I think my first instinct, and the one I'm going to think I have to go with, is donuts. And it's not that I eat donuts all the time, but it's one of those things, like when I do eat them, I could eat a dozen of them. And for whatever reason, it seems like the past several months at our office, that it'll just be like once a week, someone will bring donuts in. So of course there's a couple real good bakeries around us that, someone will bring in 2 dozen donuts, and then they're just sitting out there all morning. And I'll go by, I'll get one in the morning if I've been like eating good that day. And especially if I have like a trend, it's like, oh, I can justify some extra carbs for this. And then I go by in the afternoon, I'm like, oh, there's still like 4 donuts there, and they're just going to throw those away if no one eats them. So I'll inevitably, take one for the road on my way home. So I think donuts is choice one. And along a similar vein, and back to the donuts, is that donuts are pretty cheap too. You can get a dozen donuts for $10 to $15 depending on where you go, and they're just just something you could load up on if you really wanted to. And a similar type of thing where it's just like, oh, I just want to keep eating them, is like fresh bread or breadsticks, like especially the kind that you get at like a restaurant where it's, they bring it out before you eat. So you fill up on that, and then you don't eat as much. Well, actually, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they make you fill up on food before you order anything else? But anyways, I think fresh bread and butter, maybe a little oil and some seasoning would be choice number 2 for something like that. But I do really like your idea for the ranch, to make, unlimited extra flavor to make everything else taste better and more satiating.
So if it wasn't ranch, what would you like? Is it like, I don't know what else, what's out there? What else is out there as a dipping sauce that's super unhealthy that would mix well with like 3 or 4 big meats? Because ranch would go good with a lot of stuff, but I don't know about ranch and pork might not go over very well. And like ranch and ground beef.
I've done the ranch and pork.
Okay.
And, I'm so Ohio and Midwestern, I put ranch on everything. Okay. But there actually is a sauce that my wife just made for a meal a couple days ago. And I asked him, like, hey, can you just like make a bunch of that and just store it, and we can just like put on everything? And she goes, yeah, but it's like 90% honey. So it was like a hot honey sauce that she made. It was like honey, some Tabasco, some seasoning, some lemon juice, and maybe 1 or 2 other little things. But she's like, yeah, it's mostly honey. That's just sugar that we're putting on this. But like that was really good though. So like I definitely want to like either find a way to make it a little bit healthier or something. But we use it on salmon. It's good on chicken, so I'm sure it'd be good on other things like that, vegetables, and so that'd be a good option too, to go with the same logic you did on the ranch.
I like it. What about you, Big Jeff? You've had enough time here to mull it over. What are you thinking? I want to hear your whole logic of it too. Why? And
Yeah.
let's hear it.
I'm curious, Big Kevin, do you have a favorite donut? Ranch donut, possibly, or something else?
Oh God.
No, but my go-to donut is an old-fashioned sour cream donut.
Cool.
What the heck's a sour cream donut? I'm sorry.
So it doesn't actually taste like sour cream. I just had to convince one of my coworkers to try one for the first time, and he wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. He's like, "Well, I don't like sour cream. I'm not going to like a sour cream donut." But they're good. They're just like they look old fashioned. They're not like nice and smooth like a Krispy Kreme glazed donut. But they are just kind of like a simple. They're a little bit more cakey, but not like a full cake donut. And then they usually have some sort of a bit of a frosting over it, like a glaze on it.
So its downfall might just be its name then.
Yes. Hey, more for me. I'll take it.
Yeah, this is a great question. At first, when I thought we were going to have to accept the macro profile of the food, I was going to say the obvious answer is the Costco chicken bake, the most complete macro profile of any food in existence. But if I could go with anything, and I don't have to accept that, probably pizza. I mean, I can smash pizza all day. It's different varieties. I don't know how far and wide you want to go on like different kinds of pizza, like the Sicilian and the grandma cut, the New York style, all that kind of stuff. My grandma did used to make very good homemade pizza, so kind of has a special place in my heart for that as well. But I just like a good, non-chain. Like there's a couple of New York style pizza places very close to us here that just make a good thin crust, crispy bottom. It's just good pizza, and I don't know, pizza just goes down easy. It's good, versatile, variety. Give me that.
I like it. Now,
you didn't say, so you said that we wouldn't have to take the macros, but it would give us maybe, that we'd get the flavor and maybe some satiation from it. But what about on the other end? If I take Taco Bell, do I still have to suffer the consequences?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I haven't, like I said, I'm usually like Mr. OCD. Then I've had this conversation with people, and I've had to come up with stipulations too of well, because people have just thrown off random things, and I had to kind of like break down well, no, because like, why would you pick steak, or why would you pick anything that's high in protein? Because that's for like, this is like my lifting friends, and like we're all like have macro goals. It's like, well, why would you pick that? Because now you still have to go eat like all this other meat on top of it. It's just but as far as coming out of the back end, I guess we'll leave that up to the imagination. But a follow up on Jeff's there. So pizza, I like that as an answer solely for the cheapness end, because you can buy a cheap pizza, and obviously you probably, because you'd still want to hit your macro goals for the day, and then you could probably still you could squeeze literally a piece of pizza in at all three meals, as even you could almost like start with it and then just power through some shitty cold chicken or something, or finish with it, and then like once I finish this chicken, I get to eat a slice of pizza. That might even be the better idea. But pizza keeps for like a week in the fridge or more, I'd imagine. So you could buy one extra large pizza, and then it would last eat a couple slices a week or a couple slices a day for a week. That's a good answer. I like that. Did you have a second
Absolutely.
one? Did you have an alternative if you couldn't have pizza? What would your number two be?
Well, I think the alternative's got to be the chicken bake. I mean, it's just God's perfect food. Let me run a quick correction and apology from what I said earlier. Now, I don't want to give the wrong impression. It's not that I don't like to eat, and I don't have an appetite, and I don't eat a lot at times. But your point with the steak, when it comes down to trying to hit a certain calorie goal for the day and try to consume 170, 200 grams of protein on a small frame like me, and eat a bunch of steak and a bunch of chicken and a bunch of rice. That's the challenge. That's what I never really had success with and still have a hard time with. But yeah, if you want me to smash an extra large pizza and just do that, well, yeah, we can do that with dire consequences. But yeah,
wouldn't life be just so much easier if the foods that we just really enjoyed are what gave us clean protein and healthy carb? Like it's just like, oh God,
exactly.
If I don't whose sick joke is it? And is it honestly and if we knew, if we were just an unintelligent species and we didn't know that these foods were actually unhealthy for us, would we think they tasted as good as they do? Like, because isn't it scientific fact that like chocolate does do something to your brain? Like, it's something in the flavor palette or something. Is that a thing, or am I just making that up? I think I might just be
I don't know
making it
about
up.
I don't
that, but
know.
I do know that. So like I've gone down the rabbit hole on nutrition and everything. That back in the day, like the Liver King would tell us, our ancient ancestors, what they needed and like they ate what they needed to survive, but like the things that gave them the energy they needed right now were like really rare. So like the sugars and the fats, like that was a more of a rare treat, and like that's just like what kept them going for that short amount of time. They weren't worried about keeping a nice figure or like they were just eating whatever they could. So we're just
Right.
hardwired after thousands of years of wanting that sweetness and that that fatty flavor. We're just hardwired to enjoy that. And
Right.
now we suddenly don't need it.
And our ancestors didn't have the scientists at Frito-Lay coming up with like the crispiest, tastiest possible, Dorito chip and stuff like that. Just stocking the shelves with it.
So I do want to get to overrated, underrated, but I do have one more follow up. I know I'm the worst at these, but I saw on Instagram the other day. It might have been an ESPN chat. I want to say it was Russell Okun. I don't know how to say. It was he was
Yeah.
he played offensive tackle I think for Carolina
Mhm.
for about a decade or so. I think he was at Oklahoma State if I recall. But anyway, he was this is a big like 6'5", 325-pound man, and he just recently came out and said he lost literally 100 pounds in like a couple months period of time, I believe. And he might have lost 100 pounds over a longer period of time, but he said what kickstarted it or what the last thing that gave him his final push was he claims he fasted for 30 days straight with no food, just water, like, and was like preaching that as a good thing to do, it seemed like. And I didn't deep dive too much in the article. I just kind of read the headline and I was like, okay, is that's like the Cartman skit where he was like crucified and left on up there for like 30 days and he came back and he was just like a bag of fat skin. Like, is that even like I know you need water to survive. Can you really go 30 days without consuming food? Like if you're just eating your own fat, is that like,
I mean, he definitely got to start off as a large man to survive something like that.
Yeah.
And I do remember hearing an actual like a little bit more scientific approach to that they did that with a very obese man, not offensive line size, but like even bigger, like a 5, 6, 700 pound dude who's just like morbidly obese. And they went a full year without eating, but they gave him all sorts of IVs and vitamins and other things that, the basic micronutrients that his body needed, but like did not give him like any major source of calories. So I'd imagine, someone who was 300 pounds and maybe they have, NFL salary to have a nutritionist to help them through something like that. I think it's possible. I don't know how you could possibly recommend that though.
no, it seems crazy. But I know it's enough food talk at least for a minute, guys. I know let's everybody feel comfortable, ready to move into overrated, underrated. It's about that time this week. Now, Kevin, if there's any that you added to these that you want to get into, great. If not, if we can just split them 50-50, just kind of, but I'll go ahead and kick off here. So, Big
Okay.
Jeff, you're familiar with overrated, underrated? I'm assuming, you have your druthers. You can pick overrated or underrated. We're going to pick some, we have some hand picked topics just for you. You eventually do have to, you cannot ride the line, as they say. You do have to come up with overrated or underrated. I do like this game. My favorite part is just the caveat of like it's not just your personal opinion on it. It's you have to take in the general population's opinion and then kind of come up with a valid answer that way. So, first question, Big Jeff, overrated or underrated? Cuban coffee.
Oh, Cuban coffee. Yeah. I mean, I think it's wildly underrated. It is delicious. This is a good one because my wife's half Cuban. Her father immigrated in the United States in the 60s. And so they're from down in South Florida. Most of her family's still down in South Florida. So we go down and visit, quite a bit, a couple times a year. And yeah, it's just all over the place down there. You have Cuban cafes everywhere. The coffee comes in, little tiny cups because it's basically like straight espresso and usually heavily sweetened. You can get it made, a few different ways. You can get cream in it. So you have cafe con leche, which has, more like a milky consistency. You've got cortadito, a couple different names for these things, which is really just the coffee with the sugar mixed in. I like making it at home. So we have a little mini Cuban coffee pot that'll make, 4 or 5 little cups of Cuban coffee. You boil up the espresso, you whip up the sugar, get nice little foamy cups of it. Yeah, it's great. Even the kids will drink a little bit of it as well because they're big into it. And it's perfect little afternoon pick me up at 2 in the afternoon or whatever when you need that second wind. Cook something up and enjoy it. Delicious.
Now, is that something you guys?
Good.
Is that something you guys make, or you always buy? Like, is that something you can make like on an espresso machine, or do you have to do you have like a little diner or a little coffee shop that you guys go to specifically to get it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we have anywhere around here that we go to specifically to get it because they're just have many places like that. There's one or two that come to mind, but you can certainly get it at a restaurant. Often we do while we're down there if we're getting breakfast or something. But you can make it. All you need is espresso and an espresso pot. You prepare the espresso however you normally would. When you probably want like at least 1 or 2 heaping spoons of sugar for every little cup you're going to have. Like I said, it is very sweet. So you put that in a separate cup, and as the espresso starts to percolate and you get the first bits that come out, you add a little bit of that to the sugar and you whip it up to where it becomes kind of a I don't know what the consistency would be, kind of like a silky, drippy kind of consistency. And then when the coffee is done brewing, you pour it in and just kind of gently stir it up. It gets a nice little foam on the top. And yeah, you could absolutely make it at home. It's funny. My wife's the one that is part Cuban, but I'm the one that makes it. My mother-in-law, who's American, not Cuban, she's usually the one that makes it, for their family. So, but it's good.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. I've never had it before, but I've just recently gotten more into coffee myself, and it definitely sounds like something I have to try. But I'm not too sure there's too many Cuban coffee places up here in Ohio.
Yeah, not yet.
All right, next on the list, overrated or underrated fraternities?
That's a good question. I can give you my perspective, which is certainly what this is all about. A lot of people are going to have different perspectives. It depends a lot on your experience through that, and I think your experience afterwards as well. For me, I would say it's underrated because it was a great experience for me. So yeah, when I got to college at UCF, joined a fraternity as a freshman. Went through all that stuff. Made a lot of friends, of course, at the time. Obviously, I lived in the house for probably about 3 years. So it was a great experience while I was there. But I would say, if that's kind of the start and the end of it for you, it's probably overrated. I mean, again, it's just another way to meet people and make friends at college. But I will say that I'm still very good friends with a lot of those folks today. We typically, a lot of us try to get together about once a year at least. The ones of us that don't, live close by. Those guys were extremely instrumental in helping me have a business and kind of still be here today because I did get a lot of just lift from their support launching, referring family and friends to me, right? So yeah, I mean, for me, it's a connection that has still stayed on, 20 years plus. We were doing the things that we're supposed to do with each other, right? Kind of supporting each other and being there for each other, even later in life, being at each other's weddings and, knowing each other's kids and that kind of stuff. But for sure, your mileage may vary. And if somebody came in with the totally opposite take, I would believe it, not you, because that's certainly possible as well. You kind of get out of it what you put into it, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd say I would assume that the general population would say fraternities, or they would look at them like almost frown upon them to some extent, just because of like the party aspect, and like I don't want my kid to join that and just have full access. But if the core of it is a good group of people that you build family and community with, like I'm all for that. I've got both my brothers were in a fraternity in college, and then I've got a cousin that was in one, and I think he was president for a couple of years, and then he's got to be 15 years removed, and he's been like the what is it, like the alumni like host or guy, whatever like the adult is that basically like sponsors the fraternity, and like goes and like has to be that presence there. I think he's been there for like over a decade. So that's been pretty cool.
Good for him.
So next on overrated, underrated. This one's kind of this little backstory once I get through it with Jeff here. So overrated, underrated, Big Jeff. Beards.
Okay.
Facial hair, beards.
Yeah. I mean, they're certainly fashionable right now. A lot of people have them. They're in style. Of course, not everybody can grow one, right? So you can sort of just assert your dominance there by having one in the first place. I tend to think, particularly for my part of the country, they're a bit overrated because they are incredibly hot in the summer. I am prohibited in my household from shaving mine, at least if I want to stay married. But I definitely trim it back a lot in the summer because it's hot as hell. And actually, this past winter was the longest I ever let it get, which was okay. But then you got to maintain it. It's just something else to worry about, something else to shave, something else to, well, not shave, but to groom. It's more work, really. Got to buy beard oil for it and beard balm to keep it straight and stuff. So they're cool, but they're a pain in the ass. They're overrated.
Yeah, I'm kind of growing mine out right now. It looks crappy. I have very curly, like coarse hair, so I can put as much product in as I want, and it's just shiny, and then it just like curls back up on itself. I don't love it, but I don't know. I posted a picture a while ago, and everyone was like, "Oh, bring your beard back," when I had like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was like, "Okay, let's try it." But why the beards kind of harkened with me is because it was in the last year, so it might have been this past summer when you said you didn't shave it, but I could have swore it was like almost gone. I didn't recognize you. Like I don't remember exactly if I kind of think the way I remember it in my head was like I'm just scrolling Instagram and then I see a guy in a Massenomics shirt lifting in his garage and I was like, oh, who's this? I don't recognize who this person is. And I think I literally had to like click on the profile to realize it was Big Jeff because your face, you were unrecognizable to me without a beard because I think I had only seen you with facial hair for a year or two, and then when I saw you, even if all you might have trimmed it, but it was basically no beard, and I was like, I don't know who that is, and it was kind of a running gag that I didn't recognize Jeff without a beard. So it kind of chuckled me up, and I had to add that to overrated, underrated.
Yeah, it was totally gone at that point, and I caught hell for it.
Okay, so overrated, underrated, working from home. Overrated, underrated.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are definitely days where I feel like I need an office, especially in the summer when everybody's here and, kids are doing their thing. You would think they would be self-sufficient as middle schoolers, but they need you as much as ever. And their friends come over and, it's just kind of always something. But you really can't beat it. The flexibility it provides, again, as long as you can harness that structure and not let it be your downfall. In the past couple of years since I started working from home, I was able to take my kids to school and drop them off and pick them up. I was able to, of course, work out at my convenience, whatever time of day it happened to work for me that day, because I didn't have to drive home or drive to a gym or do anything like that. You can control your food a lot better as well. And even just in terms of saving money, you get home for lunch more often than you go out and get food. It's great. It can consume your life. I work at strange hours sometimes because I was doing something else during the day because I was at home, and then now I've got to work at 9 o'clock at night because there's still stuff to do. But I'd say it's underrated, but I also don't think everybody should do it. I think that people like getting into industries and stuff need to be in the office. At times, I couldn't imagine starting my career at home or even some of the companies I transitioned to. But for me, underrated. Great.
Good. I feel like most people wish they could work from home. Like I definitely do not have a job I can work from home. Occasionally we'll get like a quote unquote snow day and we can't go out in the field and we might get a paid snow day. If there's something, then I have maybe like 2 or 3 days worth of online training I have to do every year. So we kind of just bank those for days where we know we can't go out in the field. But yeah, for the most part, I do not have that luxury of having a job where I can work from a computer or anything like that. So my wife actually works from home. She's had her own business for the past 4 or 5 years now and works from home every day. And some days I
Cool.
feel like I am the first person that she's talked to that day. And it's just like, okay, like I'm in the position. I'm coming home. I need to decompress. I've just dealt with customers all day long, and I'm the first human she's seen in potentially 12 hours, 10 hours, and it's just like, hey, honey. No. So that's all. Do you ever have that with your, like, where you I'm assuming does your wife work like out of the home?
Yeah, she does. She started working again this year. She works at a school, so she's home now, but she's at work during the school year. And you definitely, I can only speak for myself, but you definitely have to kind of supplement your life with other interaction as a result. That's probably why I'm in the Discord so much. But it's also, setting up lunch with people, former colleagues, people in your industry, going to networking functions. I'm not the work at home because I don't want to talk to people kind of person. I'm the work at home because it's great for my lifestyle, and then I pursue that interaction that I desire just outside of the house at various functions and groups and people I enjoy hanging out with.
Yeah. So on my end, I'm an engineer, so most of the time I do need to be in the office, hands-on, working on things with other people. But when everything shut down with COVID, I did work from home for a while, and I did like the lifestyle aspect of it, like you said. But as soon as we were able to, start working in the office again, we kind of slowly worked back into a 3 day a week in the office, and then we were very quickly back into full time there as much as we were able to be. And we do have the luxury of being allowed to work from home when we need to, but for the most part, we're all back now, and it's almost weird when people aren't working in the office when they need to be now. But anyways, so next topic that we have here, this is one that I'm really interested in. Overrated or underrated? Dave Ramsey.
There's a saying about Dave Ramsey that he's great for getting out of debt and terrible for everything else. He sometimes gets a lot of hate from the financial advisor community because he says, I think he says some crazy things sometimes. He's got, kudos to him for having a very specific business model, I should say, principles he sticks to, program that, he is unwavering from. And, if I happen to like catch him on YouTube or something, somebody calls in with a question, I pretty much already know the answer for, I know what he's going to say or he answers. It's like, why you even call it in? You know what Dave's going to say. Um, yeah, I think he sometimes can go off the rails a little bit when it comes to just investing and some of the numbers he uses. I mean, there's wonky stuff I could get into that I won't, but um, he's at least popularized the idea of the debt snowball, which there's a couple ways you can approach paying off debt. That snowball, that avalanche. One of them, you pay the highest credit card interest rate down first. The other one, you pay the smallest balance down first and work your way from there. I've done the math. It doesn't really matter which one you go with. Just go with the one that makes the most sense for you. And he has popularized that. More people in this country probably need help just cleaning up their balance sheet than they need advanced hands-on financial planning. More people probably need what Dave does than what I do. He's probably underrated for that reason. Again, I have issues with some of what Dave does, but he's probably out there doing a lot of good, especially just to get people out of the hole, man. Just to get people above water, and then you can move on from there.
So do you have a final over or under for Dave?
I think he's probably underrated.
So would you say that Dave Ramsey is the Mark Ripto of financial planning?
Yeah. He probably is. That's a pretty good analogy, right? He puts you on that debt linear progression, and then once you're through that, things might need to get a little bit more complicated, a little bit more creative after that. But yeah, if he's your gateway to a better, more well planned financial life, then I'm all for it.
All right, let's hit up. We're gonna go with the sixth and final one here. I think we have seven written down. I'm gonna go ahead and cut one just so we don't. I would love a 2.5 hour podcast, but I think Nate would not. Would love to edit that. So we'll go ahead and hit this last overrated underrated, and then move into the Big Jeff asked us a question. So Big Jeff, all the marbles are on the line. Overrated, underrated. Investing in a home gym.
I always tell my clients there's a logic side of things, and then there's a psychological side of things, right? And the right decision has to come down to the combination of the two, right? So the mathematically right decision may not always be what's best for you because there's certain psychological factors we consider. I don't know. Both of you have far bigger and more impressive home gyms than me. Mine's very meager, you know, squat rack, power rack, leg back developer, whatever you want to call it, and a little platform and a couple of bars and some weights. I mean, have you benefited financially from either one of your home gyms?
Me, in the sense of I flipped weights pre-COVID for like 3 years. Like I built my entire gym essentially by flipping weights. So like I'm maybe like out of my personal bank account, like our joint account, I'm like $500. Started off, bought a cheap squat rack, bought some dumbbells, bought a Olympic set, and then this is where my OCD kicked in. Is like I wanted a second Olympic set so I could have more weight, but I couldn't find one that matched, so I had to buy the one that I found, and then I did find one that matched, so then I flipped the one that didn't, and I was like, oh, I flipped this for like $80 profit. So then every weekend for like 3 years, I made a couple $100 because I would, offer everyone in the world 25 cents a pound for their weights, even though they were listed at like 60 or 70 cents a pound. And then I would turn around and sell them for 60 or 70 cents a pound for years. So in that aspect, the gym equipment has made me money or broke me even. My gym itself, no. All the money that I've made via my gym has been my hard work, not just my gym. So I'm I'm like 30 grand out of pocket for my gym, and it's not made me anything.
Right. And you're probably about the same, Big Kevin.
Yeah, so not quite as extreme. I have offset some of my costs with flipping weights. I did some of that, the pre-COVID, and took advantage of the price hikes, in 2020. But I haven't really done a whole lot of that since then. But I've also really slowed down on all my purchases. And I'm pretty sure Keith has a similar spreadsheet to me. We both have our crazy spreadsheets of like, how much we spent on everything, how much we paid for it, how much it's actually worth now. And I went and did the math for calculating a gym membership and driving to the gym every day for both me and my wife. And right now, if I don't spend any more money on the gym, we started in 2018, we'll break even on gym membership and gas money in like another 2 years.
Okay. All right. So you've made the case it's potentially logical. See, I was going to say it's a financially illogical move because you're buying, thousands of dollars of equipment. You could easily
if I don't buy anything else for the next 2 years.
Right. So probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So borderline logical, but the psychology element, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not waiting for equipment. Like I said, I can combine that with working from home. I can work out whatever hour of the day, works for me. Easy, right? Again, your kids get involved, your family gets involved. So definitely underrated for that element, at least based on the psychology. Maybe, in some fringe cases, even it is a good investment per se, but got to do it.
Yeah, it's been the best thing best decision I've ever made as an adult, I feel, is starting a home gym. Like it's paid off dividends psychologically, if not financially. So, all right. So this is one of our relatively new segments we're going to move into here. So I've been asking the last few weeks now, I'm trying to bring prepared the guest that was on to come up with some questions for the other host. I think, we had a couple, this is the third time we're doing this. I had some overrated, underrated, or was it smash or pass last week? And Kevin had some questions for us the week before that were kind of personal, to individualize that is. So I'm very curious. Jeff said he had a litany of things. I think we got 20 minutes, half hour we can spend on this, or, the most if you want. So what do you got?
Yeah. Well, I got a few. We don't have to go through all of them. So I'll hit you with a couple overrated, underrated of my own. And I'll start with Kevin. So, Big Kevin, this question kind of harkens back to your conversation here last week, where we learned that you worked at NASA and the lab up there in Ohio. And so I'm interested in your response to this question too, just kind of based on your age and when this group was most popular. Overrated or underrated 30 Seconds to Mars?
Oh, that's a good one. I am a fan of theirs. I don't know, like I'm a very casual fan of, but like I do like that genre of music. And I really probably only know a few songs, but like if they came on, I would definitely recognize them. So just because I like them and I don't think that they're super well known, I'm gonna have to say that they're underrated.
Underrated. Yeah. Yeah. I like them. I don't follow them closely either.
Mhm.
They're again kind of in that genre that I can appreciate, but kind of were popular at a time when I wasn't digging around for a lot of new music. I had no idea that this is how much I know about him. I didn't know that was Jared Leto's band.
Yeah, yeah. When I first saw that, I thought that was wild. I'm like, oh, it's like it's kind of interesting. He's getting into acting. He's like he got in like one movie, then he did another one and another one. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe he shouldn't have. But
Yeah. All right, cool. Keith, kind of question on a similar vein for you here.
Mhm.
Overrated or underrated? I'm sorry. Yeah, I said Keith. Overrated or underrated John Denver?
John Denver. So yeah, I mean, yeah, gosh, I guess overrated just because he has like the one song, Country Roads Take Me Home. But a lot of people outside of West Virginia, I think it's a lot of people in Maryland will claim that like if you listen to the lyrics, he's not actually talking about West Virginia. He's talking about like being in a state close by, looking at West Virginia, if I remember right. So I don't know. Was he got like there's a few. I don't listen to any John Denver, so I'm gonna go overrated in the sense that that was before I think my grandparents listened to John. Or my, I don't even know my. Yeah, overrated John Denver. Not a fan. I'm not gonna go to my way to put John Denver on a playlist, but I will listen to Country Roads if I ever hear it on the radio, or it just harkens back memories of my youth because they always played that after a West Virginia football victory. They play that song. So, but even in so yeah. I can't ride two horses with one ass, so I'm going to go overrated.
So do people in West Virginia like that song in general, or they hate that song
Yeah,
entirely?
that's essentially like the state song, or at least like.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about West Virginia is, at least where I grew up, like there's not an NFL team, and there's only two big colleges. That would be West Virginia University and Marshall. Marshall is like maybe a tenth of the scale of its like reach as far as like fan base. So like basically 90% of the state all root for one team, like one like sporting team, which is really cool. Like I don't have that in New York State like at all because there's a few different colleges and everything, and it's just as a kid I took that for granted growing. Like I didn't have I don't I've never been able to recreate that as an adult. Having like one team that everyone in the like three surrounding counties are a fan of, basically. So, but yeah, that particular song is. That one individual song is very much underrated. Him as an overall musician, overrated, I guess.
Okay, yeah,
that's funny. I'm going to chime in on that one.
Yeah.
I almost think it's the opposite of that. I do love the West Virginia song, but it's definitely overplayed, but I still love it. So I still think it's got to be overrated. But I do think as an artist, he's underrated. My wife and her family, they love some John Denver. And we won, last year. We drove all the way out from Ohio to Utah, and we threw on some John Denver radio on Spotify and listened to that for like hours on those drives out. And like, he's got some good stuff that I didn't know he had before. And it's very different. I've never heard any other artists who are quite like him. He's part country, part like opera almost, and he's got some yodeling in there, so he's all sorts of different stuff. But I like his stuff too.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I was wondering. We kind of have a phenomenon here in Jacksonville. Leonard Skinner is from Jacksonville, and the song "Sweet Home Alabama" is probably like that version of Tree Roads here. Play it at everything, every Jaguars game, every sporting event, every county fair, whatever, just all the time. And I hate the song, and it's pretty much ruined me for the band, which is an otherwise fine band, because it just, gets rammed down your throat. for your entire life. But anyway, all right. Do we want to hit another question for each of you, or is that?
Yeah, no, we're
good.
Right. I think let's keep it going. I just
right.
I'm content.
So I'll hit you. Mm-hmm. I'll hit you with a couple more. Big Kevin, I've been to both of these places, and I want to know. I'm deciding which one I want to ask you about. And I think I'm going to go with
this
over
or that, or if you want to go over under.
Okay. All right. I'm coming up to see you, and we are going to one of these two places.
Okay.
You want to go to Cedar Point or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I gotta go towards the Cedar Point. I think that it's just more of an attraction. It's more to do. Obviously, it depends on who you are and like what you're actually coming for. But I went to Cedar Point all the time as a kid. Little known fact, they're actually in the town I grew up in. There actually used to be a smaller amusement park called it was Jogger Lake for a while.
Been there
for a while. Then it was Six Flags, and then Jogger Lake again. Cedar Point basically bought it and ran it into the ground. SeaWorld was there for a while too. So that was wild. I grew up in this tiny little town, but actually had a pretty reputable amusement park, which was basically Cedar Point Junior. So, and even though we had that, we still went to Cedar Point, at least once a summer, growing up. So I would pick Cedar Point over the Rock Hall. The Rock Hall is pretty cool. If you're a real music head, you would appreciate it. But if I had to pick one, I'd go Cedar Point.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. I've been both. Like I said, I like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's fun. But if you're telling me a day of, riding roller coasters and eating funnel cakes versus listening to Aerosmith, I think I'm going to take Cedar Point. All right, good. All right, Big Keith, so it's coming your way. This is a recent development, so I'm very curious to hear how this went. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about it. Overrated, underrated, the Geek Squad.
Oh, Jesus Christ! So this is. I haven't had I did get my phone back today. So my personal phone. I have a work phone and personal phone. My personal phone. The battery life. It fell in water. I was washing dishes and watching a YouTube the other day. Like this was a few months ago, and it definitely got completely submerged. I was able to get it out, and it was fine. It still worked, but like the battery, you can go into Apple or your settings, and I think my battery's capacity was down to like 72% or something. So it was dying within like an hour of turning it on, or at least getting down to like low battery mode. So I was just getting really annoying. And I've never had a battery get to that point that it was like that bad. So I was like, all right, let's go to the Google machine. I was like, oh, for like $80 I can get a brand new battery. Like, awesome. So I made the mistake of going to Best Buy and going to the Geek Squad instead of going to Apple. And they had it I dropped it off Saturday and I got it back Thursday afternoon. So she was like, oh yeah, we'll be able to order the battery today. It'll be here tomorrow or Monday at the latest. We'll get it to you Monday night, maybe Tuesday at the very latest. I show up Tuesday just because I hadn't gotten a call and I just wanted to put touch base with someone because they don't even have a number you can call. And she's like, oh, yeah, sorry, it hasn't delivered yet, blah, 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 blah. I let a whole day go by. I didn't hear anything yesterday. I actually called today and ended up getting a 1-800 number and talking to someone who's just, probably working from home as a call center person. And he was like, oh, I can send an email out to him and have him reach out to you. And I think it was just coincidence because then like 20 minutes later, I did get an email saying my phone was ready. And then they had the audacity to be like in the email saying, please schedule a time to pick up. And then like the first available scheduled time to pick up with the Geek Squad was like tomorrow at like 7 p.m. And I'm like, no, I'm stopping by on my drive home because I was working in Buffalo and driving back to Rochester. And it just happened to be on my way as I was going back to my office. So I ran in and grabbed my phone and yeah, so now I have my phone back, and I think I had about 100 missed texts and 7 missch calls. It was a lot to work through. So I'm glad I had my phone back. I was lucky that I have the luxury of having a work phone, so I was still able to have full access to Discord and Instagram and Facebook and Messenger. So the only people that called me or texted me are ones of people that didn't really just see. I had a story every day saying, hey, I don't have my phone, so I don't know why you're talking to me on here. I do not have my phone, so. Sorry to anyone that I didn't get back to in a timely manner. But I will never be going to Geek Squad again. I will be going to Apple Store directly. So
who do they think they are?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you got your phone back. That's working again.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and those are my questions. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, guys. Well, I guess we'll bring this one on for a landing. Big Kevin, anything else you wanted anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to cover, or anything you wanted to mention? I mean, I'll kick it to you for where we can find you and all that in a minute, but just anything you wanted to, I mean, you think you had a call out to Joey that you were basically going to take over his position, right? That it was just me and you going forward, and that Joey wasn't going to be allowed on?
I think I think it just makes more sense. We're both American based. People can't tell our voices apart, so it'll be real fun for everyone to try to figure out who we are. But yeah, so maybe instead of unpaid and underrated, it'll be Kevin and Keith's podcast.
I like it. I feel that even if we did, I don't think I think we sound somewhat alike, but I talk a lot faster. So, and that's something I've been trying to work on that. I know that was a lot of negative feedback I got in the first couple episodes. I don't know if I've slowed down or not, but I don't know. I'm not gonna. I did my best, but I am who I am. So you can only change so much, and it's just, if I'm forcing to talk myself, if I'm forcing it, it's just not natural. So however I talk, it's just how it's going to be. What about you, Big Jeff? Did you think we covered everything you wanted to cover? Any call outs or shout outs? Anyone you want to talk shit about, or any big pots you want to stir? Any other financial
Discord? I'm the most hated man in the Discord, so I just go there and air it out.
All right. So, okay, guys, this is the Unpaid and Underrated podcast. You can find us on Instagram there. We have a website where all our, if somehow you don't have an app that has all the podcasts on it and you want to have a website directly, go to unpaidinternpodcast.com. On there, it's got every episode we've ever done. It's actually got profiles from anyone who's ever been a guest. It's anyone that's been a host. There's a little bit of, everyone's pictures on there. So go check that out. And Big Kevin, where can we find you on Instagram or wherever they want you to?
Kevin_RSG_18.
Nice. We'll go follow him there. And he's posts a lot of good lifting videos and some good home gym stuff every now and then. But you, Big Jeff, where can we find you? And anything you want to plug business related if you'd like?
Yeah, well, find me at Dollars and Deadlifts on Instagram. And after you check out the Unpaid and Underrated website, if you want to check my website, it's createwealthfp.com. And in fact, this Friday, so by the time this comes out, should have an entirely redone, rebranded website that I'll be talking a little bit more about online as well.
Nice. So yeah, go be sure to find
Big done by Tommy D Creative.
Well, that information is pending, but I'll let you know soon enough.
Sounds great.
Speaking of Tommy D, I was listening to an older episode here. It was basically Tanner was one of the hosts was wrapping the other host's knees, and basically they were zooming in on his crotch and saying, "Hey, we're looking at the Tommy_D," and it was a pun on his Instagram handle. It was pretty funny. I just butchered the explanation of it, but you can find me, Big Keith, at Keith Honeycutt 73. If you want to follow my Orange Gym, it's the No Wine Cellar. But more importantly, check out Unpaid and Underrated podcast. And we just ran out of time to get Big Matt on this week. So, I mean, I don't know one of these days we're going to have to find time to get him on there, but it just wasn't this week. He's probably going to corner us at home at the Massenomics meet in July and just be like, get me on the podcast, you sons of guns. But, until then, we'll just have to keep on trying him. And with that, we will see you guys next Tuesday.